Bronson, creativity expert, and the author of a very interesting best-selling book, 2003, What Should I Do With My Life? What's the relationship between what we should do with our lives and creativity? Does being creative make us happier in our careers?
This is a really interesting question, Andrew. I can only talk about this on a cohort basis.
What does cohort mean?
Cohort means you can't say this applies to everybody. This applies to some people. So neurologically or in psychological evaluations, creative people, the number one personality trait that comes up is openness to new experience. Number two would be novelty seeking. And what's going on with openness to experience is creative people, or all people, when they see a problem, they use sort of their left hemisphere. They look for obvious solutions, obvious answers to this. And more creative people, when they don't find the answer there, now their brains dual activate. Neural systems on the left and the right hemispheres start working. And on the right hemisphere, what it's doing is it's combing through your memory banks, looking everywhere for something that might be relevant to the problem your left side of the brain is looking at, right? And so it's letting in and it's letting in and it's letting it in. And this sort of openness to experience and sensitivity, these personality variables, are very likely related to the fact that their brains are dual activating. The right brain is sort of activating more of the time. In the same way, we said that novelty seeking or risk taking is a second highest trait of creative people. This relates to risk systems in the brain and inhibitions in the systems in the brain. We all have a little thought police watching our brains, inhibiting us from saying stupid comments. And creative people can literally turn that off. Alcohol also works to turn it off. But they can sort of disinhibit themselves. And in both these cases, people who have these neural patterns, it would be clear that for them, they need new experiences. They need novelty. They need risk. And if to deny that will make them suffer. And to some extent, what should I do with my life, or the culture of entrepreneurship?
Are we talking about everyone here?
No, we're talking about people who have this trait. So
how do you know if you have the trait?
This should ring a bell if you have the trait.
For people watching.
It rings a bell. And most
so it rings a bell, so for people who get very bored easily, creativity is the key to their career.
It is a key to literally activating your brain in the way you want it to be used. My second novel, First 20 Million is always the hardest. What I said there, this is sort of written published in 1996. So I was writing this back in 1994. And what I said was that people here in Silicon Valley don't want their brains to go to waste. They feel like they have this brain and it's just not being used, right? And that's what we're seeing now in the neuroscience, which is they have particular characteristics and appetites of what satisfies and uses their brain. Yes, for those kinds of people, creative activities is intrinsically meaningful. It's autotelic, meaning, which is to say, if you want to look that word up, it means that
how do you spell it?
AUTOTELIC. Autotelic means it's of its own good. You know, it doesn't need. You don't have to ask more questions as to why this is meaningful. It just is. You feel it.
So, what do you make of Nicholas Carr's argument that the internet is wrecking our brain? Is that and implicitly, at least, Carr was on this show, I guess, making us unhappy as a race?
Yeah. Well, I would also add to that side of the argument your book Cult of the Amateur, which would say, you know, if we go to this question, is the internet making people more creative or less creative?
Right.
And I would look at this two different ways. On one way, if you look at the culture of Silicon Valley, a hallmark of creativity is this sort of merging of opposites. And back a decade ago, we had in Silicon Valley only really web pages as this new platform. Now we have lots and lots of technologies. You can cram them together, work with them in interesting ways, and the output seems more creative, more adaptive, better. On the other argument is that we've lowered the bar for people on the internet. They can exercise faux creativity. They can pretend to themselves that they're creative when all that they're doing is retweeting other people's tweets. You know, and they're not actually pushing themselves to generate good ideas. They're just generating a lot of bad ideas.
I like that term, faux creativity. Is there another word for that? Stupidity?
You know, the scholars of creativity break apart creativity into big C and little c, and these different things, and I want them to put an FC in there for faux creativity.
FC, thank you.